Hey now, it's Steve Stevens for Bionic Buzz. We're here at San Diego Comic-Con 2019 for Behind the Music of Comic-Con. We're going to be interviewing a lot of the composers who work on our favorite TV shows and movies. So let's go see who we can talk to. So here at Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passion. Where did your passion for music come from that made you want to get into the industry? A certain album you loved, a live performance you saw, or a score? Or walk us through.
Well, I've always been like a huge John Williams fan, which is obvious for I think most composers. But I grew up in a super musical family, and kind of learned to play various instruments. And my family had this town band that each of us kind of were thrown into and had to just learn an instrument, join in, play along. And then my mother used to write plays and musicals, and she would put them on with the local kids in our town, and I would just be kind of thrown in behind a piano from the age of 10 and had to figure out, making some music for the background. So it kind of stemmed from that. Years later, I realized that that's kind of where it all began. It's just literally live scoring on a piano, and just kind of grew from there. And then I went on to study music. I always knew I wanted to do music. There was nothing else that ever interested me. And then I've always adored films. I love the escapism of it. And yeah, once I realized there was something I could do where I get to combine those two passions. Yeah.
Very cool. And how did you get into the industry? I guess, well, you have the passion for it, but I mean, you got to have that big break first.
Well, I did. I went to school I actually did my master's degree in film scoring at Berklee College of Music. And then I came out to LA and just started working with other composers. I wrote some additional music on some shows, and then I started orchestrating, and I work with one composer in particular who I orchestrate all of his shows. So I'll conduct some of the recording sessions we do, and yep.
I'm always curious how the recording session goes. Do the director send you notes, or they just send you the scene and you got to kind of come up with what do you think matches?
So you write it, and then you send a kind of a mocked-up version to them, and they'll understand that these aren't the live instruments that will be in the final product.
Okay.
So you send it to them, then they send you back, give you notes, you make the changes, and then you go and record with the orchestra.
Okay, so it's more like a garage band kind of scratch track kind of thing?
Yeah, so we have like a DAW, digital audio workstation, where you write and you mock up all of these. You'll have your piano track and your violin track and whatever other random sounds you want to put in. There's some synths, some more organic instruments, and you give them just a really, really good mock-up of this is how it will sound in the end.
All right, any coming up? Do you have any side projects? Do you release any of your music online we can follow?
Do I have any side? Hopefully season 2 of Undone.
Yeah.
Which we're hoping to hear about soon. But
cool. Do you have a website or social
yeah,
media?
it's just my name.com, amiedoherty.com.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, David, here at Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passions. I want to know where your passion for music came from that made you want to get in the industry. Was it a certain album you heard, a live performance you saw, a score you heard that made you want to do it, or where did it come from?
Yeah, well, as a young man growing up in Pennsylvania, I loved the movies, and that was the beginning for me, and I started watching all kinds of, I saw the things that you saw as a kid that were an influence, like Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Those movies. I loved the John Williams scores, and that really got me into wanting to learn more about film music. And then over the years, I saw films like The Year of Living Dangerously from 1982, where they used a song from Vangelis in a scene, and or the movie Goodfellas, where they used a Ronette song over this long tracking shot that goes on forever, and it's like those moments like struck me. I loved the way music works in film, and that made me want to move to LA and do something. I didn't know what at the time. I'm a music editor, and I guess that's pretty close to following that dream. Yeah.
Nice. So walk us through, when someone has they send you something that needs to be scored, do you do a scratch track first and send it to them, and then what are the notes that they give you?
Yeah, it varies from project to project what my role is. Sometimes on an early stage, I'll get a scene and have to cut some temp music to it, which sometimes can be a problem. Ask any composer down the road, and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I have to. Everyone loves this piece of music you stuck in there, and now I have to copy it." That happens more often than not. Other times we sit with the composer and the producers and we just watch the show without any music, and we sort of decide with a blank canvas what we're going to do there, and that's the most fun and most challenging.
Okay,
I think.
yeah. Cool. One of my favorite things, I think it was last month, I got to see the music of Cobra Kai live at the Whiskey. Well, you ever thought about doing something like that for any of your stuff?
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, performing live. Yeah, I played in bands over the years, and now I have this sort of synth pop band project called Dream System 8, where we use all vintage synths from the 1980s.
Oh, really?
We only use drum machines and synths from the era, so it's like that's.
80s, you got to play the Whiskey a Go-Go.
Oh, I know, exactly, right, totally. So that's been a goal of ours when I'm not so busy working on these shows to like get the keyboards out into the.
All right, I gotta see
into
that. Where can we stay up to date if this project does come out and you do play live? Is there a website we can stay in touch with?
Yeah, you can find Dream System 8 on Spotify and all places where music is digitally available.
So here at Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passion. I want to know where your passion for music came from that made you want to get into the industry. Was it a certain album, live performance, score you heard that made you want to get into it, or was this music naturally for you as a kid?
You know what? I always loved film scores. Always loved that. Well, actually, I did. One of my first CDs was a Disney CD. That said, I don't do a lot of that kind of stuff now, but I'm such a rock freak. I love rock music. I love AC/DC. I love Led Zeppelin. I love like the Sex Pistols, the Clash. And so punk rocker at heart. I also studied classical music. So for me, I love classical music and I love the rock and the pop stuff, and film music is such a combination of those two things. For me, you get to, you do a movie and you get to do these big orchestral sweeps, and then suddenly we're driving and it's rocking again. It's just, I get to do both worlds, which is really nice.
Cool. Were you like in bands in high school, like punk bands or anything?
Yeah, all the way through high school. My main instrument's drum kit, so that's my first thing.
Too.
Yeah, no way. Love drums. I played clarinet in band and kept looking back at the drummer thinking, why am I playing this nerdy instrument and he's having all the fun in the back? So immediately switched to drum kit and started playing that in the orchestra and big band and stuff. Of course, then started rock bands, and Blink-182's Take Off Your Pants and Jackets was my How I Learned to Drum album, like as fast as possible with Travis Barker. Loved it. I just played it on repeat, just trying to keep up and figure out the fills. It was great. When I moved to Los Angeles, I made a band as soon as I came here. I actually made an EP, which I played guitar, bass, I sang, I did the drum kit, and I produced the whole thing myself. So then I hired musicians to play around LA with me. We got to play the Whiskey, we got to play the House of Blues before it shut down, and all of those awesome locations. And I was doing film music all at the same time, so it was a very busy time.
Well, last month I got to go to Whiskey a Go-Go. The composers of Cobra Kai performed the music live, and it was really cool. I mean, have you ever thought about doing something like that for the shows you work on?
I would love to. Actually, when Samurai Jack, the new season, first came out, we had a live show at the Ace Theatre in downtown. So we actually opened the show with a 10-minute montage of different cues from the show, and we had 2 taiko drums, we had a drum kit, we had Tyler Bates on guitar viol, I was on tubular bells and taiko, and I playing this weird synth instrument. So we opened up the show. It was huge and epic and awesome, and then we played the first 3 episodes of the new season back to back for the sold-out theatre. It was really cool. Yeah.
All right, well, walk us through, like, when a project comes to you, like, do you have to put together a scratch track first, or do they send you notes, or?
Generally, a lot of times you have to demo for projects, or they'll know stuff that you worked on and they'll hire you that way. But generally, as soon as you actually start working on that particular project, at least with Gendy Tartakovsky on Samurai Jack, he'll bring in the show, and we call it a spotting session, where we sit there and we'll literally just play the episode top to bottom, pausing now and again and just discussing each scene and saying, how do you feel? Sometimes there's already temporary music in there, so you're like, how do you feel about that? Do you want it, is it driving enough for you? Do you want it a little more emotional? Or maybe when he pulls the gun out, we should hit that a little harder, and coming up with these ideas and getting to know the creator, and you figure out, are you a guitar guy, or are you an orchestra guy, or what are we creating for this show?
Very cool. All right, is there a website, social media-wise, we can stay up to date with you if you do any performances live?
Yeah, my name is Joanne Higginbottom, so honestly, if you just Google it, I have Instagram, I have Twitter, I have Facebook, and that'd be awesome.
All right, so here at Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passions. I want to know where your passion for music came from. A certain album you heard, a live performance, a score you heard that made you want to get into the industry?
The first music I really remember is the music that was coming out of my head.
Yeah?
honest, true story. I've been hearing melodies constantly, 24 hours a day since I was 3 years old. I remember swinging on a swing growing up in the projects, the Outgo Gardens in Chicago, and I remember melodies that I would hum in my head, waiting for my dad to come home, and it went on and on and on that way. I just felt like I was actually kind of crazy because I could not stop these sounds. And what's great about scoring is that I get somewhere to put that that music.
Well, walk us through back in school. Were you in any bands, or did you do the band in high school?
Yeah, I did bands at very young ages. I wrote my first symphony when I was 12 years old, and I went to a school where you could major in music, CBS, in Chicago, where they started a music program and allowed us to have. They had an orchestra, they had a full choir, and they had a full over 200-piece marching band, and we could study writing music and history of music and your individual instruments and taking care of instruments and repairing instruments. And so you did all of these different things and writing. So I could write for a full orchestra in high school and actually hear it played back. So it's
amazing.
Yeah, yes, but they no longer have their music department. I would love to figure out what we could do to help them get their music department back together again. That'd be very important to me.
Well, one of my favorite things last month, I got to go see at the Whiskey A Go-Go the composers of Cobra Kai perform the music live. Oh, wow. Have you ever thought about doing something like that for any of your projects, to perform it live?
You know something? I'm preparing a scenario to be able to do Black Lightning live. I'm working on it right now and trying to see what we could do to do live orchestra versions of Black Lightning.
Very cool. Well, as a musician myself, I'm always curious how composing for projects works. Like, do they send you the thing first, you do a scratch track, or do you sit down with the director?
Well, it's different with each filmmaker, with each director, each producer has their own style and how they want to do things. But in the case of Black Lightning, I traditionally like to read the scripts. I like to start from the beginning where they were, and I want to be on the same journey that they're on, which starts with the written page, and see how it changed and morphed from there to when they really shoot it, and when get how an actor is going to deliver that line, how the director wants to set up that scene, how the cinematographer wants to shoot that scene, and the textures, all the textures and colors that they put in there totally change how I'm going to go about it, and how a actor delivers a line, that might make me sway in just a different way, So I like to go on the whole journey with them.
I love that. All right, is there a way we can stay in touch with you, website, social media-wise, so if we do that performance for Black Lightning?
Yeah, you can go to kurtfarquhar.com and check us out.
Here at Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passions. I want to know where your passion for music came from. A certain album you heard, a live performance, a score you heard that made you want to get into it?
I would say two scores kind of round out the way I got interested. Well, the first scores that really interested me was Lost in Space, the Lost in Space scores of John Williams. I just remember even as a kid watching reruns in '69, I would have been about 5 years old. I just thought that music was like, wow, this is cool. I mean, I looked forward to it. The Gilligan's Island music, even the comedy, the comedy stuff. Then my mother took me to see 2001: A Space Odyssey. I was probably too young to see that movie, but that was more of a classical music score. But it's the way it worked with the imagery was sort of, even after 50 years, is sort of 51 years is, it stands up and then some, and people have done it, copied it, and then I saw Jaws when I was 1970. I'm sorry, about 11 or 12 years old. That kind of really did it for me. I mean, that score was just, you just can't believe that music. When you really study that score, you don't see the monster for an hour. It's really and then the swashbuckling pirate music, and then building on top of that, whether it's Goldsmith's Patton or Alien, and then certainly the string of movies, Close Encounters. But it started there in the beginning.
Cool. And in high school, were you in any bands? Did you have a punk rock band or something like that?
You know what I was in is I started, my first job was playing cocktail piano at restaurants when I was 14, and I got into playing jazz there. And I loved rock. I mean, look, I was more into like Elton John and Billy Joel, and I love Steely Dan. I love some of the, certainly Springsteen, the Beatles, but I was more into the playing of things, which is why I gravitated more towards the piano guys. So, but I was trained in classical piano, so when I went to college, I focused more on classical music. But my car, if I had a boombox in the car, it probably had more soundtracks than rock or pop music.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things last month, I got to go to Whiskey A Go Go, and the composers of Cobra Kai performed live the whole soundtrack for both seasons.
Yeah.
You ever thought about doing something like that for any of your projects?
I have. As a matter of fact, I'd love to do a Jessica Jones episode or a Homeland episode, because those are more intimate.
Yeah.
And have them maybe at a jazz club or like Catalina. And you just got to pick the right episode so you can have enough music and enough. But I think that what I think is so great about that experience is it's immersive. And the music is great as a soundtrack when you're driving. But when it's married to the picture that it was written for, it's all the more amazing. We're gonna go see Jurassic Park next month at the Hollywood Bowl, and that's gonna be exceptional. Because it's
the Swingers movie. What was the venue that they? I could see something like that for your Jessica Jones.
Marty, the Dresden Room. Marty.
Yeah. I could put a little jazz there.
Man, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
It's intimate. It's got a bit of a noir feeling to it. Good call.
All right.
I may steal that idea.
Please do. And just walk us through, because as just a musician myself, I'm just curious how that works. When they send you a project, do you read the script first, or do you see? I guess it depends on each project, right? Do you do a scratch track first, or do they send you stuff that they kind of want?
Yeah, I would say like and I did a show for CBS called Elementary, which was about Sherlock Holmes. I read that script, and I wasn't even asked to do the show. I wanted to do it, but I wasn't asked. They were still trying to figure out who they were going to get. But I wrote a theme for that show before I was even asked to work on it.
Oh wow!
I did it as an exercise. I just thought it would be kind of fun. And then when they asked me to get involved with it, I actually I was able to use that theme based on the script that I'd read.
That's so cool.
And with Jessica Jones, this is the interesting thing about Jessica Jones. Normally you see the like a rough cut, like you'll see a rough cut. But because the director was still working on the pilot, the first episode, they could only show me stills.
Oh wow!
And so try this out. It's like, so they showed me like 50, 60 slides of just Kristen Ritter in her office and just frozen. And it's really interesting to get an idea on how the inspirations when you're working at still images as opposed to moving images. A totally different kind of process, because you retain things more in looking at a photograph as opposed to watching it, watching 30 minutes play down. So I saw her office, I saw the lighting of the office, I saw the lighting of her street, her apartment, the law office, which was a little colder. Yeah. So these things all sort of got thrown into the stew, creatively. And then making the main title, that was a big.
Who would have thought you would nail it just from photographs?
I had very supportive people too who worked with me on it, and I was really happy about that because they were very, you want to make it work right, And that theme actually won an Emmy, Marvel's first Emmy Award.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so.
Well, I love it, and I hope you can perform it live. Was there a way we can stay in touch, website, social media-wise?
SeanCallery.com. Yeah, I have a little. I actually just redid it to make it simpler. It looks so old. I'm embarrassed. If you'd gone there a month ago, it looked like that house at the end of your street that got abandoned, but you can still deliver mail to it. It's just social media arrived when I was just approaching the age of 40, and some people just got it right away, and for me I was just about, I don't know, 3 years or 4 years too old to like really swallow. I mean, I love it, but it wasn't like perfectly pitched over the plate. I was at an age where I was like just getting into email and everything like that. So anyway.
All right. Well, thank you so much, man. Pleasure to meet you.